are a very important part of Westerosi culture and an extremely popular event for both the small folk and lords alike. Up and down the Seven Kingdoms, from the Sands of Dawn to the Wall in the far north, they play a central and key role in the A Song of Ice and Fire novels, with large parts of the plot arranged around a number of major tourneys, especially during a Game of Thrones and a night at the Seven Kingdoms. Westeros, where the largest part of the books takes place and where we have most of the world lore and history about, has a culture and level of technology that's somewhat based on northwestern European Middle Ages, with Tourneys being part of the culture that influenced George R. R. Martin's writing and world building. The dozens of Tourneys that are described or mentioned in the series are important social events and form the background of many of the major plot developments in the history and lore. For knights, tourney outcomes are an important part of their personal history. A lot of reputation and esteem can be gained from a good performance in a tourney and can define their social standing. One good tourney performance can write your name in legend for generations. For example, Sir Arlan of Pennytree, the mentor of Sir Duncan the Tall in the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, whom he squired for many years. In 200 AC, Arlan was defeated by Prince Baelor Targaryen, Prince of Dragonstone, in a tourney at Storm's End. He would later go on to claim he broke 7 lances against the prince, while Baelor only remembered 4. Regardless, Arlan chose never to joust again after that prestigious showing. For a hedge knight, the reputation he gained, while minor for most knights, was a huge deal for Sir Arlan. For hedge knights in general, tourneys are almost like going to a jobs fair. Doing well at a large tourney with lords present could net you significant prize money, enough to sustain you for years. You might even catch the eye of a lord or landed knight who could take you into their service. It's not just knights and lords who relish a tourney. For the host, who bears so much of the cost, will come a great respect and reputation among the other lords. The small folk, as well, benefit greatly from tourneys. Not only are they much anticipated and a greatly needed form of entertainment, the camp around a tourney ground is a great place to trade, and for likes of blacksmiths, stable masters, farmers, whores, to make lots of gold. Innkeeps in particular will often close their doors to the small folk, given just how many richer knights and lords will need room and board, so the economic impact cannot be understated. Tourneys in Westeros do tend to slightly vary according to the region in which it's being held, and of course the desires of the hosting lord, and the rules devised by the lord's master of games. They may be held to celebrate a marriage, such as the War for the White Cloaks at the Golden Wedding, or the infamous Whitewalls tourney. Many forms of competition are known, including jousting, large-scale mock battles between knights, archery competitions and melees, in which many warriors fight individually or in one large battle, and very, very rarely, trials of 7, as seen at the tourney of Ashford Meadow. Tourneys can be small events focusing on one competition held in a single afternoon, or they can be large and take several days and may include many different competitions. Normally, the richer and more esteemed the hosting lord, the bigger and longer the tourney should be. The central event, and seemingly the most anticipated part for many, is the jousting. It's arguably the most dangerous aspect of a tourney. 2 armoured knights will aim to knock each other off their mounts with jousting lances, continuing on foot with a variety of blunted weapons, and in some very rare cases, live steel. The loser of a joust must often forfeit his horse and armour to the winner, thus jeopardising a considerable part of his possessions and wealth. However, this aspect of a joust tends to be more impactful for poorer knights, especially hedge knights, who most likely won't have the gold needed to ransom back their property. Many tourneys pit pairs of warriors in rounds, where the loser is eliminated and the winner proceeds onwards. The winner of the last round is declared the champion. This is similar to how many tourneys in the real world were performed, with the exception of the best of 3 rule. Some ladies allow contestants to wear their favour during a tourney, with the Queen of Love and Beauty being chosen from the ladies by the competition's victor. Another format was used at Ashford Meadow, This type of tourney starts with 5 champions who defend the honour of a woman, often a daughter of the lord who arranges the tourney. Other participants can challenge one of the champions to a joust, and if successful, take his place. At the end of the tourney, the 5 remaining champions either confirm the original Queen of Love and Beauty or choose an entirely new one. Traditionally, it was seen as good manners to maintain the Lord's choice. Some Westerosi tourneys are open to only anointed knights, whose privileges are highly guarded. Tourney culture is closely connected to chivalric traditions and its spiritual basis, the Andal's faith of the Seven. These traditions dominate southern and central Westeros in particular, especially the Reach, but they are more uncommon in the north, where many follow the old gods. However, the rules for entering tourneys vary with time and place, and there has been many events where free riders, squires, or even followers of the old gods have been allowed to enter the lists. Strangely, we know very little about tourneys prior to Aegon's conquest, but we do know that the first tourney in Westeros is said to have been held in the Reach. According to legend, 50 lords competed for the hand of Maris the Maid, a daughter of the legendary Garth Greenhand. Argos Stoneskin is said to have won this tourney, but Maris instead wed Uther of the High Tower before Argoth could claim her. We also know that King Loren II Lannister, King of the Rock, is said to have held and been undefeated in the first tourney in the Westerlands, sometime after the one in the Reach. The first documented tourney we have comes in 28 AC, known as the Great Tourney of Riverrun. It becomes noteworthy because a 16-year-old Prince Maegor Targaryen, second son of King Aegon I, defeated 3 knights of the Kingsguard in succession in the lists, until he eventually fell to the champion. Afterwards, Maegor won the melee and was knighted on the field by his father, King Aegon, with the Valyrian steel sword Blackfire. In 49 AC, during the regency of King Jaehaerys I, his 2 regents, his mother Alyssa Velaryon and his hand of the king, Rhaegar Baratheon, married in a spectacle that became known as the Golden Wedding. As part of the wedding celebrations, a tourney was held for several days in the under-construction Dragon Pit, involving knights from across the 7 kingdoms and near on all of the great houses. Because there were 5 vacancies in the Kingsguard after the young king succeeded his uncle Maegor on the Iron Throne, the Queen Regent Alyssa Velaryon suggested her son award white cloaks to the champions of the tourney, which would follow her golden wedding to Lord Rhaegar. Jaehaerys decided that the contenders would fight on foot instead of jousting, as foes looking to attack him would likely not be doing so from horseback. The tourney lasted 7 days, with the jousting tilts overshadowed by the wild melees and bloody duels. Hundreds of knights competed with axes, spears and swords for the honour of serving in the Kingsguard. Several colourful competitors became favourites of the smallfolk. In 55 AC, Lord Manfred Redwine, the Master of Coin, proposed, with the completion of the Dragon Pit, be celebrated with a great tourney, to which King Jaehaerys agreed. Lists were raised in fields west of the city, between the Lion's Gate and the King's Gate. After winning the Squires' tourney, Rickard Redwine was knighted by Jaehaerys himself. The champion's laurels went to Sir Simon Dondarrion of Blackhaven, who won the love of the smallfolk, and Queen Alysanne Targaryen, whom he crowned Princess Daenerys as his Queen of Love and Beauty. As no dragons had been settled in the Dragon Pit as yet, the huge building was chosen to host the tourney's grand melee, which involved 77 knights divided into 11 teams. The participants began the melee on their horses, but continued fighting on foot with blunted weapons after being unhorsed. When one team remained, its members turned on the other until a single champion remained. By the melee's end, 2 men had been killed, and 20 more were wounded. Queen Alysanne forbid her favourites, Jonquil Drake and Tom the Strummer, from taking part in the melee. In 58 AC, a tourney at King's Landing was held on the anniversary of Jaehaerys' first decade of rule, with the king watching the jousts in the royal box with his wife, Queen Alysanne, and their children, Daenerys Aemon and the newborn Baelon. The young knight Sir Ryan Redwine was the champion, and crowned Queen Alysanne as the Queen of Love and Beauty. In 78 AC, there was a tourney celebrating the marriage of Lord Darklyn of Duskendale to a daughter of Lord Theomore Manderley, held at Duskendale. The tourney included a squire's melee, which in Prince Aemon Targaryen, the Prince of Dragonstone, heir to Jaehaerys, was the victor, defeating his younger brother Prince Baelon. Aemon also distinguished himself in the lists, and was subsequently knighted for his jousting skills. After returning to King's Landing, now a knight, he took to the skies for the first time as a dragon rider on Caraxes at the age of 17. The following year in 73 AC, at the tourney at Old Oaks, in the Reach, Aemon's younger brother, Prince Baelon, took part in the event as a mystery knight, known as the Silver Fool. It is said he accounted himself well before falling to Sir Rickard Redwine. Rickard helped the mystery knight to his feet and unmasked him, revealing the Silver Fool to be none other than Prince Baelon. Rickard bade Baelon to kneel and knighted the prince on the spot. A feast was held after the conclusion of the jousting to mark the tourney's end. Prince Baelon was only 16 years of age, 1 year younger than his elder brother Aemon when he was knighted. Sometime after 73 AC, a tourney was held by House Tyrell at Highgarden and was regarded as one of the most finest and spectacular seen in many generations. In 89 AC, Lord Hightower staged a tourney at Old Town in honour of King Jaehaerys, who was visiting the city during one of his royal progresses. Sir Ryan Redwine defeated all competitors and was crowned champion of the tourney. The largest tourney for several generations happened in 98 AC in King's Landing, attended by most of King Jaehaerys and Queen Alysanne's surviving children, grandchildren and great-grandchildren. There were so many dragon riders present in the city at the same time. It is said that not since the Doom of Valyria had so many dragons been together. So Ryan Redwine and Sir Clement Crabbe, both knights of the Kingsguard, broke 30 lances against each other before King Jaehaerys proclaimed them co-champions, declaring it to be the finest display of jousting ever seen in the history of Westeros. The reign of King Viserys I Targaryen saw countless tourneys across Westeros. However, we only have significant details about 3 of them. Each of these 3 play an important role in the history and the build-up to the Targaryen Civil War, the Dance of the Dragons. The first was held in 103 AC at the town of Maidenpool, celebrating the ascension of Viserys to the throne. The 22-year-old Sir Criston Cole defeated Prince Daemon Targaryen, the Rogue Prince, the brother of the king, in a melee by knocking aside Dark Sister with his Morning Star. He gave the victor's laurels to the 7-year-old Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen and asked to wear her favour in the lists. Criston subsequently became a favourite at court and joined the Kingsguard the following year, taking the slot left vacant by the death of the legendary Sir Ryan Redwine. The next tourney would come in 111 AC, held in King's Landing to mark the 5th anniversary of the marriage of King Viserys to Queen Alicent Hightower. During this tourney, Queen Alicent dressed in green, while Princess Rhaenyra dressed in black and red, creating the origin of the names Greens and Blacks for their respective factions at court. Prince Daemon Targaryen would return to King's Landing during this tourney from his war in the Stepstones to swear fealty to his brother, King Viserys. The last tourney came in 114 AC, held again in King's Landing for the wedding of Princess Rhaenyra to Sir Laenor Velaryon. It was said to be a very tense tourney given the political backdrop. Sir Criston Cole, now the champion to Queen Alicent Hightower and the former sworn sword of Rhaenyra, defeated Harwin Strong, champion to the princess. Sir Criston also defeated and mortally wounded Sir Joffrey Longmouth, champion and rumoured lover to Sir Laenor Velaryon. Of course, during the Dance of the Dragons and in its direct aftermath, tourneys came to a stop on account of the conflict. The next tourney we know any true significant detail about came in 170 AC, a very rare tourney held in the north at Last Hearth by House Umber. Being a northern tourney, its focus was the melee rather than the lists, as most of the competitors would have been followers of the old gods. At least 18 participants are said to have died, and at least 27 men maimed during the contest. Sometime prior in 187 AC, we know of 2 tourneys. In one, Prince Aemon Targaryen, the famed Dragon Knight, won as a mystery knight, so he could name his sister, Queen Naeris, the Queen of Love and Beauty, instead of his brother, King Aegon IV's mistress. We also know of a tourney at Lannisport, where Sir Arlan of Pennytree defeated Sir Daemon Lannister, known as the Grey Lion, whom was then heir to Casterly Rock. In 187 AC, at the wedding tourney to celebrate Princess Daenerys Targaryen's marriage to the Prince of Dorne, and therefore Dorne's unification with Westeros, Prince Baelor Targaryen, heir to King Daeron II, defeated Daemon Blackfyre in the final tilt in a hotly contested joust, gaining the name Baelor Breakspear on the account of the amount of lances that were broken that day. During a tourney for an unknown purpose in 193 AC in King's Landing, Sir Arlan of Pennytree defeated Lord Stokeworth and the Bastard of Harrenhal, one of the few high-profile victories in the career of the Hedge Knight. In 200 AC, at a tourney presumably at Storm's End, to mark the birth of Lord Baratheon's grandson, Prince Baelor Targaryen defeated Sir Arlan of Pennytree in a joust that became very well known and gained Sir Arlan much respect from his peers. Sir Arlan claimed the joust was 7 rounds, while Prince Baelor many years later would only recall 4. There are several minor tourneys that happen between 200 and 209 AC, but they seem to be very few large-scale ones. The tourney of Ashford Meadow, held in 209, has become one of the most iconic tourneys in Westerosi history, thanks to it being the main setting of the Hedge Knight, the first of the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms novellas. Lord Ashford staged the tourney to celebrate his daughter's 13th nameday. His daughter was named Queen of Love and Beauty and would have 5 champions to defend her honour. All the other entrants were the challengers, and if anyone defeated a champion, they would take their place as the new champion. After 3 days of jousting, the champions would determine if Lord Ashford's daughter retained her title or if another would wear it. Ashford became well known for the trial of 7 of Sir Duncan the Tall and how impactful its outcome would be on the history of Westeros. It would also be at Ashford that the legendary Sir Duncan made his name. The tourney at Whitewalls in 212 AC, the setting for the Mystery Knight and the Second Blackfyre Rebellion, also stands out among the tourneys of this era. It was arranged by Lord Ambrose Butterwell to celebrate his second marriage to a daughter of House Frey. The format was a standard knockout tourney, but only a few of the outcomes are known to us, as the tourney had to be abandoned prematurely when an army led by Lord Brendan Rivers, Bloodraven, surrounded Whitewalls, given it was a guise for an attempted Blackfyre rebellion. There were also 2 knights who entered the lists under false names, Sir Duncan the Tall as the mystery Gallows Knight, and Daemon the Second Blackfyre as John the Fiddler. Between 246 and 272 AC, we see a string of very minor tourneys, in which little of note occurred. However, there are several that see the rise of Sir Barristan Selmy as one of the most respected knights of his generation. At the tourney of Blackhaven in 246, it would mark the first appearance of the young Barristan. Selmy, then only a squire of 10, somehow acquired a suit of armour and entered the lists as a mystery knight. He jousted well until he was defeated by Prince Duncan the Small, son of King Aegon V, after which he was unmasked. He would later be dubbed Barristan the Bold for his deeds that day. In King's Landing, during the winter tourney of 153 AC, the now 16-year-old Barristan Selmy participated as a mystery knight. He defeated both Prince Duncan Targaryen and Sir Duncan the Tall. King Aegon V rewarded Barristan for his feats of prowess by granting him knighthood. At the feast that night, ribs of wild boar were served, prepared the Dornish way with dragon peppers. Barristan would go on to win several tourneys, one at Silverbridge and a larger one at the town of Maidenpool. He would also defeat a skilled mystery knight at a tourney in Old Town. The reign of King Aerys II, the Mad King, sees several large-scale tourneys that have a huge impact in the way history played out. In 272 AC, Tywin Lannister, the Hand of the King, hosted a large tourney at King's Landing to celebrate 10 years of King Aerys' reign. During these proceedings, the king drunkenly insulted Tywin's wife, Lady Joanna Lannister, by asking if her breasts had been ruined by breastfeeding her children, Cersei and Jaime. Aerys refused to allow Tywin to resign as Hand of the King the following day. In 276 AC, a tourney was held at Lannisport by Tywin to honour the birth of Prince Viserys Targaryen. Aerys initially did not wish to attend, but he eventually relented. Queen Rhaella and the newborn Viserys would remain in King's Landing. Viewing stands for the tourney were raised beneath the walls of Lannisport, where the small folks' cheers echoed off Casterly Rock like thunder. The 10-year-old Cersei Lannister became infatuated when she saw the 17-year-old Crown Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, who was freshly knighted. Rhaegar defeated 2 of Cersei's uncles and a dozen of Lord Tywin's finest knights in the joust, before falling to the legendary Sir Arthur Dayne in the Kingsguard. That night, Rhaegar's harp playing made the young Cersei cry. Lady Jenna Lannister confided to her niece Cersei that the young girl would be betrothed to Prince Rhaegar in a feast ending the tourney. The very happy Cersei then visited the tent of Maggie the Frog with her friend Jane Farman and Melara Heatherspoon. There was no celebratory feast, however. Aerys rejected Tywin's offer of betrothal as he considered Tywin as his hand a servant. Cersei was left in tears, while the tensions between Aerys and Tywin increased. Sometime around 280 AC, Lord Steffon Baratheon hosted a small tourney at Storm's End. Lord Commander Sir Gerald Hightower states in the White Book of the Kingsguard that Barristan Selmy was named champion after unhorsing a young Robert Baratheon, Prince Oberyn Martell, Lord Leighton Hightower, John Connington, and Prince Rhaegar Targaryen. Arguably, the most impactful tourney to ever be held in Westeros is the Great Tourney at Harrenhal in 281 AC. The tourney was held by Lord Walter Went in honour of his daughter and to show off his house's power. It was the greatest tourney of its time, perhaps even ever. Crown Prince Rhaegar Targaryen was champion, and in the end chose Lyanna Stark as his Queen of Love and Beauty. This was scandalous, in that not only was Rhaegar already married to Princess Elia Martell, but Lyanna herself was betrothed to the young Lord Robert Baratheon of Storm's End. This indiscretion culminated in Rhaegar's abduction of Lyanna a year later, which began the war that became Robert's Rebellion, bringing an end to Targaryen rule of Westeros. Also at this occasion is the mysterious tale of the Knight of the Laughing Tree, who appeared in the lists to fight for the honour of Howland Reed of Greywater Watch. It is believed by many that it was Prince Rhaegar's intent that this great tourney was to be a pseudo-Great Council called to depose his father, the Mad King, and that he was the one funding it and not House Went. It would seem that King Aerys, whom was already paranoid, caught wind of Rhaegar's intentions and decided to attend the tourney himself, thus preventing any collusion from his foes to remove him and place his son on the throne. The shadows of this tourney casts on the history of Westeros cannot be understated, given it directly sets the stage for Robert's Rebellion and the very downfall of House Targaryen. Obviously, during Robert's Rebellion, tourneys were not really happening. But given the very nature of Robert Baratheon and his sheer love of tourneys, they would play a large part during his reign, starting off with the celebration of his wedding to Cersei Lannister in 284 AC in King's Landing. While the wedding of Robert and Cersei was huge, we can safely assume the tourney was likewise just as grand. But all we can say for certain about it is specifically that Jaime Lannister ended up as the champion. There was also a small tourney sometime between 285 and 290 AC, in which Oberyn Martell badly wounded the leg of Willis Tyrell, heir to Highgarden, with the two becoming friends afterwards, often writing each other letters, despite the fact Willis was now crippled. In 289 AC, there was a grand tourney held at Lannisport to celebrate the defeat of Balon Greyjoy and House Greyjoy in the Greyjoy Rebellion. Lord Jorah Mormont, recently knighted for his acts of valour in the final battle at Pike, won the tournament, and with it the hand of Lynesse Hightower, whose favour he wore. It appears Sir Barristan Selmy would win one final tourney in King's Landing in 294 AC at the age of 57, making him one of the older knights to have seen victory. The next major tourney would come in 298 AC, marking the name day of Prince Joffrey Baratheon, bringing to King's Landing a retinue from the Westerlands. Tywin Lannister hoped his son, Jaime Lannister, the Kingsguard, would be the tourney's champion. Half the court bet on Jaime, but he was unhorsed by Sir Loras Tyrell, the Knight of Flowers. Jaime lost 100 golden dragons, and his sister Queen Cersei Lannister lost an emerald pendant, which was later returned. While the singer Marillion had won silver earlier in the tourney, he lost it all by betting on Jaime. King Robert Baratheon won a Valyrian steel dagger, which, according to some sources, had belonged to Peter Baelish, for betting against his own Kingsguard knight. Lord Walder Frey went to King's Landing to see his sons ride in the tourney, but was greatly disappointed in the results. When Tywin returned to Casterly Rock after the tourney, he was accompanied by his daughter, Cersei, and her children, with the king. Joffrey, Marcella and Tommen. Lord Arryn, the Hand of the King, would die when the Queen was away from court. Later that same year, to mark Eddard Stark being named as Hand of the King, King Robert organised a huge tourney to honour his friend. It included an archery tournament, a melee, and a round-based jousting competition. The jousting competition ended when Sir Gregor Clegane attacked Sir Loras Tyrell after their tilts. Sandor Clegane stepped in and saved Sir Loras's life, fighting his own brother to an impasse. After King Robert put a stop to the fighting, Sir Loras yields the final tilt to Sandor in gratitude. The archery champion was Anguy the Archer, while the melee was won by Thoros of Myr. Oddly, despite the War of the Five Kings being in full effect, there was still some small tourneys being held, mostly locally. In 299 AC, a small tourney is held within the walls of the Red Keep to celebrate the 13th nameday of the new king, Joffrey. Due to the war, the tourney draws no great champions, with Sandor Clegane calling them gnats and refusing to participate himself. It ends shortly after it begins, upon the arrival of Tyrion Lannister. That same year, having been crowned at Highgarden, Renly Baratheon travels with his supporters through the Reach towards King's Landing, which is now held by his nephew, King Joffrey. Renly hosts a melee beneath the castle of Bitterbridge. Catelyn Stark, an envoy for her son, Robb Stark, king in the north, notices much of the Reach's cavalry near the castle, while across the Mander are the lords from the Stormlands. While there are 116 competitors at the start of this melee, there are fewer than 20 knights remaining when Catelyn's party arrives. Brienne Tarth singles out some men for having bet on who could claim her maidenhead. The melee continued until only 2 contestants were left. Brienne Tarth with a Morning Star, and Sir Loras Tyrell of Renly's Rainbow Guard with a long axe. Loras yields to Brienne after being grappled to the ground, which a drunken Tyrell archer considers a vile trick. For her reward, Renly agrees to name Brienne to his Rainbow Guard. In 300 AC at Runestone, in the Vale, Harold Harding, Harry the Heir, wins a small squires melee. However, we have very limited information about this.